1 year ago today, Riz came out. Diamond Diehards is on. Jeff the Dog Healy, bringing you Diamond Diehards along with Joe Rizzo. We are changing things up a little bit here today, kicking it off with the dog. So, since this is all the dog does and this is all the dog knows, we're going to jump straight to Veteran of the Day. So our Veteran of the Day is actually an old friend of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Tantillo. I knew him in the engineers with the 192nd Engineer Battalion. He later went on to command the 102nd Infantry Regiment in Connecticut. And I thought of him today because today was the first time in World War I that American forces went into battle against the Germans. So the first division for you poor suffering folks in the Bronx was the Yankee Division that got over to World War One, to France, and the 102nd Infantry was part of that unit. They were attacked this day, knocked back a little bit by the Germans the first time into battle. So the Germans launched a surprise attack, pushed them back from French town, and then the U.S. Regrouped and came back and took back the town and pushed hard back up there. And the Germans basically knew they were in for a tough fight, with the Americans now coming in to reinforce the Allies in World War I. So Frank Tantillo, veteran of the Connecticut Army National Guard, both engineer and infantry, is our Veteran of the Day. And now here's Riz explaining himself of how he came out a year ago.
Well, before that, Dawg, and thank you. Wow, what an eloquent opening as we just stick with the change-up theme to start basically every one of these shows. Uh, if you haven't figured it out yet, you can follow us everywhere at Diamond Diehards, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, LinkedIn, and a Facebook group and a page. Not streaming it on this episode, but we are there nonetheless, and we want you to subscribe and follow us and all that good stuff. As Dawg likes to say, Twitter game strong, and I think it is. FMS Graphics is a family-owned, family-run business for 50 years. They've evolved to cover all of your print and promotional needs. That's fmsgraphics.com, fmsgraphics.com for all your printing and promotional needs. So why are we changing it up? So basically on this day, as Dawg was talking about before, but on this day, it is Wednesday, the 21st of April, and exactly a year ago today, I finished my 2-week quarantine because I was diagnosed with the coronavirus disease. Is that what you call it? COVID-19?
We're on COVID now, yeah.
Yeah,
We used to be Corona.
COVID-19, the disease.
It was a lot cooler when it was Corona.
Yeah. So I had that, and I had fortunately a mild case of it. But what happened was we were in the infant days of this show, and that sort of it was actually a show that we did on April 15th of 2020, where it's kind of the show that sort of made Dawg a co-host, I would say, right, Dawg?
I just never left. Truth be told.
and that night, sort of like Dawg took the A spot over. So if you haven't hit that is still to this day, by the way, our most downloaded and most, I guess as a result, most listened to episode ever. And a lot of the older episodes have really gained a lot of traction lately, like the past couple of months here, as we've started to spread the net a little more. But what happened on this particular day was when we were talking on the show, there were a lot of people who were, especially at that time, like last April, we just had no idea. We were in 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? And now we're into like year 2 of 2 weeks of flattening the curve. But
this close.
just explaining, like just having the forum to explain what was going on, what my daily life was like, why I, sequestered so strongly. Like, I mean, I literally did not leave my bedroom for 2 weeks. I did the only, well, I didn't leave it to go to another part of the house. I went out of my bathroom window and laid on my roof on days where it was sunny, and that was it. Like, I never exited. And this show was like my solace. And fortunately, I had my computer in there, and Dog was in. He was jumping on, and we were kind of figuring out like what would be a format. But it was mostly me talking about Stratomatic simulations. And the next thing I know, we're talking, and Dog's kind of like interviewing me on my own show here, and he's walking me through stuff. And so here we are a year later. This was the day 1 year ago that I exited. And I don't know if it's ironic. I don't know if it's coincidental, or if it's coincidentally ironic. Today, without really any planning, I got my first dose of the coronavirus vaccine. So I am halfway to Moderna. And it was at like 11 o'clock this morning. And right now it's like 10 o'clock at night. And op just feels like a normal day. Feels like maybe, if I was left-handed, and I threw, a few, like a couple of extra more pitches than I should have. But other than that, good. But yeah, this is like the anniversary of a landmark show for us, Dog.
Yeah, that was a this is a biggie, and it's a great book. It's a great bookends, right? I mean, I said we kind of got birthed right into the whole coronavirus, and now we're into the COVID. Um, it's great to hear you got the vaccine, and that's starting to go out and protect you. So that's huge, and it's fun, right? We're just all talking about getting together and stuff, and my youngest Michael is asked about going out to a Met game, which I actually like to go to now, since there'll be actually hopefully a decent team out there. Lindor hitting home runs. Lindor could use FMS graphics, by the way. So that little note: first home run as a Met on tonight's game. But it's great. It's a great sort of feeling. It was sort of tough before, right? It was sort of like baseball is like the allegory of the country over the last year or so, right? And it's kind of shut down, and we don't know what's going on. And we did the strat simulation to kind of help fill the gap for a little bit, doing stuff virtually, kind of just like work and everything else is going on that way. Started to get a little bit come back in the summer. The COVID kind of came down a little bit, and baseball got to be played a little bit. We kind of got that going and stuff, and got through the World Series. Justin Turner gets COVID like the night of the game 7, right? And it kind of seemed like from that point forward, we kind of went down again a little bit, and COVID started to pop back up in sort of late November, December. And now we're finally getting past it right now, I think. And the vaccine is rolling out strong. And we're ready to get rocking and rolling. We got our Metsies in first, and things are good.
If I tell you what, if you listen to the show over the course of the months, and you listen to the stuff Dog was saying about, the vaccine and the way it's going to be rolled out, and how the numbers would just improve like exponentially from month to month. Well, you got to dig a little deeper into the data, right? Like, and they say, well, more people are getting infected. There's spikes here, there, and everywhere, but nobody's dying anymore. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, right? But comparatively, the
Yep.
death numbers, the bottom has fallen out from under them. The death rate has unfortunately not ceased, but it's slowed dramatically, right?
Yep.
Hospitalizations are sometimes up, but you're not seeing people go into ICU at this point. So the things that they're talking about with, the effects of the vaccine, where, it maybe isn't stopping the spread as much as we thought it would, but it's definitely really, really put the brakes on the deaths and the serious symptoms, like especially early on. Um, the funny thing is, Dog, to kind of like bookend this a little bit, there I was, and again, we could. I don't expect people to go back, a year into the archives. It's not like we have 800 shows to go dig through. But if you want, it's April 15th, 2020. You can go back to that, and it's in the first, probably 10. It's probably 10, 12, 15 shows in, something like that. if you want to, if you want to wheel it back and check it out. But what I was talking about then was the hardest thing really for me was the mental aspect of it, because there was so much uncertainty about, you know, how you're feeling. And my body was telling me, like, you're fine, dude. There's nothing wrong with you. Just, live life, go about what you're doing, just do it inside your bedroom. Um, and I did that. I did that. But it was actually April 7th of 2020 when I got my first symptoms, and they were minor. It was just a very, very low grade fever. And then, I sequestered myself at that point. And the next day, I had some body aches, and the next day I had, still a little bit of a fever. And I never had a fever like that. Was at 10 in the morning. I had a fever. By 4 in the afternoon, I had gone to get my test. So that was my one escape. And my fever never came back. But then when I went to bed, I sweat through my clothes, twice in an hour, like badly, like all the way. And then I woke up the next morning and I felt better than I do on a normal day. And from there, I was like, well, this is kind of, like I just felt so normal and fine. Uh, and I got to Easter Sunday, which was I think it was the 12th of April last year. And I got the call from my doctor. He said, yeah, you tested positive. I said, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? He said, yeah, you came up positive, but he wasn't concerned at all. He goes, but you really haven't had symptoms, right? I said, no, I mean, just the first day. And, but the thing at that time, Dog, was every time, it's allergy season, right? So anytime there's pollen and you're having a little, you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, like, am I
Yep.
gonna be in the ICU like by the end of the night? Because you're hearing all these stories of people like,
Yep.
1 minute they're fine, and the next minute there's this crazy onset and they're floored. And, I wasn't gonna have anybody that could come in to take care of me, because I had my in-laws living with us, and my father-in-law was had strokes, and he was very susceptible at that point. And my mother-in-law, we wanted to keep it away from her. It turns out that she had it and she beat it as easily as I did, thank God. But there was like, I was on my own. It was like, take care of yourself until the wheels come off, and if you can't anymore, then it's going to be hospital time. And it just never, I mean, I never coughed twice. Like, I would cough once and then it was over, and it was probably just from standard, dry throat. And I had some things that are hard to say if they're symptoms, like I was dry in the back of my neck for a while. Um, and in like my sinus cavity, but like I wasn't coughing anything up or anything. Like, it was just, I had this weird neck pain. So I was very lucky. And the mental part of it was definitely for me the hardest part. And the great thing about being able to do an episode here on Diamond Diehards that got widely shared was any questions and well wishes that people had for me, like people who didn't care about baseball, that were just my friends or acquaintances or whatever. They got on and they listened to it, and it explained a lot. So I felt like I did something good, and you were right there, Dog. Like, I don't know if I'm just sitting at my computer by myself talking. I don't know if I'm quote unquote coming out like that, to make fun of our beginning. But I did do, if you're, well, this is more for the, maybe I could post it on Instagram or something, if, which is, but my Facebook is, a little bit closed. I have a lot of people on there, but it's, I don't share as much. But I actually did a video of the moment when I walked out, and I reposted it today. And it was, it's a lot. It's very emotional for me. I hadn't seen my kids. I'd seen them in the hall when I was opening the door to get the food that they were delivering to me. But, they'd leave it there, they'd knock, and then, they'd be 20 feet away, and I'd like have to wave to them. Or my wife, and my in-laws were downstairs. So I didn't even see them. But I did this video, and I didn't tell anybody that I was walking out. It was like noon. on, April 21st in 2020. And it was like a selfie video. I did it on myself. And, I was rewatching it again today and getting a little emotional about that. And, there was my father-in-law who, was unfortunately on his way to his ultimate demise with some health struggles at that time. But, that was one of the good days that he was having. And, he was there to greet me, and Debbie was there to greet me. And, then I see this, a few days later, Chris Cuomo doing a bullshit ripoff for, I'm certain you cannot convince me he did not see my video. You can't. You can't convince me that he didn't see it, because he copied exactly what I did, except he wasn't he wasn't really in his basement alone. He was out riding his bike, and bitching at people for cutting him off, like, which is documented. So, I had to take a little swing at that, fake tough guy, like, but
So, yeah, it's
yeah,
amazing.
dog,
Like,
you
mhm.
guided me through that. You got that out of me. And I'm grateful, because that's like a real piece of my history now, and I appreciate that you did that,
Yeah,
walk me
I
through.
mean, it was great to be a part of it, and it was a great, it was just great, just getting to communicate with you, and sort of try and help out any way that we could. Obviously, we had a situation with our mutual friend who had the health scare with COVID, and obviously that was sort of part of our mindset, right? It's like we already had a really near miss. I mean, you can't much get nearer than that. And and just it's funny. I was just thinking back, like you know all the misinformation, right, from back then to now, right? Like we're now, like some of the stuff would just be funny, like looking back on it. I mean, it's almost another episode there. But like remember, like you're supposed to leave your mail on the porch for 3 days. Right, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing. You had to like wipe down. Everyone was getting sick on a cruise ship, so therefore it's all the common stuff. So you're gonna wipe everything, right? You're gonna like wipe every knob, every this, every that, whatever. And and now it's like it's totally BS, right? But that was like gospel at the time. Like that's it. That's how we gotta stop this thing. It's spreadable through touch, and it might be airborne, and we don't know. And it's just like it's just been all over the place the whole time, and just the uncertainty, right? I mean, that was almost like peak uncertainty time crossed with like misinformation, right? So it's actually like the worst of all possible things. Like you're getting it, but most of it's actually wrong. And like I said, everyone's freaking out, right? And it's like, oh, it comes through this, and now it's like, oh, it affects all your systems, and like we thought it was all just respiratory at the time, so just don't get coughed on, you're good to go. Or if you touch your eyes, that's going to be it. And it's like, who knows, right? I mean, even to this day, we're still trying to figure it out and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, just looking back, right, when we were looking at it, if we said a year ago that over half the country is going to have had a vaccine shot already, and within 6 weeks, 65% of the country, basically anyone in the country who wants a vaccine, is going to have one. That's 16 plus, um, within 13 months of this thing coming out. And we all be like, "There's no way!" Like people are talking 2 years, like normal sort of vaccine cycle. Like maybe we get something in 2 years, right? And
No,
and
I mean,
hopefully,
two. It's like,
I mean,
how
I'm
about
not saying that's what I'm
four?
saying. That was the hopeful, maybe that was the hopeful 2 years. It was
Yeah.
more like we might never get it, right? It was a coronavirus, like the cold. We've never cured the cold, right? So we might never get a vaccine. If we do get it, maybe it'll kind of work, right? And et cetera, et cetera. And now it's like 90%, and being able to roll it out far faster than I think almost anybody thought possible. Um, it's amazing just how we've gone from where we started to where we are now.
And you gotta sprinkle the whole politics thing in that whole backdrop of it, right? Like, because
Yeah,
people start taking sides based on what politicians are saying, from presidents to governors to your
yeah,
local officials, but more so, like, the presidents and the governors are the ones who are getting it. And you have this mask thing, and people are trying to claim that the mask stuff is based on your political party lines, whereas
mm,
I just never saw that, like, but
yeah.
myself. But all this stuff that's it's like analytics in baseball, doc. Who do you trust? You got the side that's like all about the analytics that wants to, change the game and do that. And then you got Shigon, who's like, see the ball, hit the ball, baby. Take
Be
the extra
healthy,
base.
right? I mean, I don't know if you saw like the Bill Maher just came out right with his thing on COVID. And, just how much like being out of shape has led to so much disproportionately negative outcomes, like in terms of hospitalizations, deaths, and so forth. I mean, it's like 80%. It's like, what, like looking back, it's interesting when you're talking like sort of the divisiveness, and that I think that was a real mistake and a real down point, I think, for the country. Right, this is something we all should have rallied around, and it wound up being a hugely divisive issue, which is just nuts. To me, is just an American and military and everything else. I don't get that. But then, like Bill Maher sort of saying, like, here was one thing you could say, like, what, everybody go out and do 2 miles a day. Right? Just, wherever you're starting from today, just get yourself that little bit healthier. And if the whole country gets that little bit healthier, a lot more of us are going to come through this okay. And you're going to take more pressure off the system, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that could have been a good positive thing for us to kind of work towards. And instead, that never happened. And like, we couldn't talk about it, and we couldn't say like, well, you really need to lose, if you're going to lose 20 pounds in your life, like, this is the year, right? Go do it. Right? I mean, this literally might save your life if you go and do it. Anybody say that? Not that I heard of. Right? I mean, people knew it was a risk factor, but nobody was connecting the, should we do something about a risk factor? And that was a real shame. It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, but individually, you saw a lot of people who ran with things, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people did make changes, and I think you've seen a lot of changes in terms of people putting quality of life issues ahead of other issues, or just raising the bar, and companies making uh, the decision that they never would have made before, which is basically how much of the population has the ability now to work from home, right?
Yeah.
You've completely morphed the workforce. Like,
Yeah.
who's gonna, like, people will still want, probably the option to go in and work in an office, and there will be a lot of people who go back and want to do that, and there's also going to be a lot of people who are like, we're just fine this way.
Yeah. We're good.
A lot of companies had their most productive year, right?
Yeah.
And the taboos were always, well, if we don't have people here, we can't really watch over them, and there's no peer monitoring and things like that. Well, guess what? There's no peer monitoring.
Yeah.
so you don't have people preoccupied with what everybody else is doing. They have to kind of be preoccupied with what they're doing if they want to keep their jobs. And I think you've even seen stuff like in baseball, right? Like, a lot of these operations have had to become more remote. Like, they have to rely on Zoom more to share scouting reports and this and that. They cut down travel. They cut down basically any expense. If you have to send somebody on a plane, you're sending one person instead of 7, right? Like,
Yeah.
and even then it's going to be scrutinized. So
That's an interesting one, Riz. That you sort of think, like, is this sort of the test? Like, you're sort of saying, like, the Shigon versus the analytics and stuff, right? Like, this could be one of the tests in scouting time, right? Is, you have much less physical scouting going on out there. It's much more analytics driven, just because that you don't have anything else at this point. Do you see a huge effect in terms of the draft? Right? Do they go and say, hey, look, we drafted all these guys, and part of it's kind of hard, right? You've had a sort of a messed up season for college and high school too, so maybe it's not quite fair. But let's say even next year or something like that. If all of a sudden you see like drafting's better because we're not using as much personal input and there's more analytics driven, and analytics kind of proves itself, or we go and we totally stub our foot and the guys are just come back and they're terrible and they had a great spin rate, but all of a sudden it just doesn't have it anymore, doesn't have it mentally, et cetera, and some of the analytics value gets knocked down a little bit.
I don't know, but maybe it's not even. Maybe the analytics aren't even as important in the remote world, because now what you have to do is you have to find a way to reach the coaches. Now, Coach Scott Bradley, Coach Bradley and the number nine, he was on the show a few weeks ago, and that's a really great episode to go back and watch. And I did start cutting it up, and I just haven't released the snippets of it yet, but the whole episode's out there, and it's really great to watch or listen to. And but Scott, tweets frequently now, and he's a really good follow on Twitter. You should definitely go follow him. And one of the things he talks about is, um, if you could play, yes, we'll find you, but go out and, if there's a school you like, make contact with them, to find the coaches, like talk to them, social media, email, whatever it is. Like you can find these people. They're available to you, and that's one way to get yourself known. So, Dog, I feel like, maybe we see if this crop becomes particularly good, and they stick with it, and this is kind of the new way of the world, maybe it starts to favor the players who are more assertive off the field and can organize themselves a little bit that way, as opposed to just, being able to play, where, you could get probably a pretty good idea of what someone's ability is if you watch enough video of them, right? Like, you can't maybe be as sure as you would when you're there. But let's face it, how many guys are drafted in the first round that just never even make the major leagues? I mean, the rate
Yeah.
of that has decreased, but it still happens. Like, think about that. It's still there's still players in all the sports that are drafted in the first round that don't make it, like, even today. So how, how much worse could it be? Right? Like, maybe the rate gets a little higher, or maybe we start to value other skills a little differently, and those skills might not necessarily be, um, can this kid throw 95, and can we get him to throw 100? Maybe it's, what, let's talk to this kid, let's really pick this kid's brain, and see, like, he's okay, he's never going to throw more than 92, but man, he really knows what he's doing out there, and he's okay. If he makes a mistake at 92, they're going to hit it, but he's going to make way less mistakes at 92 than this kid's going to make at 96, right? So in the end, it's not about how many mistakes you're making, it's about how many mistakes they're killing. And there's ways around that, like, we it seems to, in our Twitter timeline, this stuff seems to come up all the time. Put the bat on the ball. Let's not focus so much on exit velo, when, Clint Frazier finally got his first RBI of the year, and his exit velo on the hit was probably, 46 miles an hour. It was off the fists, and, went 8 feet over Freddie Freeman's head, and dropped in for a single that scored a run from second, and the Yankees lost to the Braves 4-1. But, like, at least they can go celebrate Clint Frazier, getting off the schneid for the year, right? And that's kind of that debate is being wrangled about. And most importantly, Dog, I think we've kind of turned it back into a baseball episode. I think
There you go.
did we do it?
I think so.
Dog,
I
for
know I
those,
went and checked my Mets score, and I'm done talking about the Mets for tonight.
yeah,
We're good for tonight. We're gonna
yeah,
roll it forward to tomorrow.
Dog and I are the big losers. We're like, should we go live? Like, looking at the score, we're like, nah, we're not going to go live. Mets are, Mets are down 14-4. They were winning 2-0 in Chicago through 3.5. Then they give up 7 in the fourth, 3 in the fifth, 4 in the sixth, and Dog. More importantly, Javi Baez has made 2 outs, and none of them have been strikeouts. He's on the ultimate K rate, like, and he hasn't struck out. Dog, to paint the word picture a little bit, as our mentor, the late Marty Glickman, would
Nice.
say, I have the Yankee hat on and the Fordham sweatshirt on, and that is
That's
very
all it.
interesting that you picked your veteran of the day, and you managed to sneak in the thing about the Bronx there. I was like, wow.
The Yankees. There
It
you
seems like we're so coordinated on this stuff.
go.
I mean, just sometimes we're just awesome, and that's the way it is.
Sometimes it just clicks.
Sometimes it does. Okay, Doug, you were at the field with Michael throwing bullets tonight.
Hmm.
Still debating whether he got 2 or 3 strikeouts based on there was a
I think it
possible
was
drop
three.
third
Thinking
strike.
it over, I think it was three with that drop third strike. So
Okay, drop third strike. So he's three Ks out of what 5 outs that he got.
yeah,
It didn't allow a hit,
no hits.
and should we just leave it at that?
Well, four walks.
Okay.
The whip's still working on it. The whip's a little high.
Did he go to 3-0 on anybody?
Yes,
Yeah.
couple
So
three O's.
did you give him the signal when he goes 3-0? Just hit him. If you go 3-0 and you
worthwhile.
can't,
You're not coming back from that. Save the pitches.
save those pitches. Yeah.
Send a message.
So and you got a nice chilly April 21st night, huh? It was like in the mid 60s. It was a pretty nice day.
Beautiful earlier. Yeah.
We got this monsoon around 2 o'clock, and it was crazy. I was out, and there was like some flash flooding going on, and a little bit of lightning here and there. I don't know if it was where you were, but
It actually it somehow bracketed us, went right around us.
You didn't get the
It was
rain.
dark. No.
Oh wow.
It was amazing. Yeah, literally, it was everywhere around us.
Yeah.
But the big clouds came across, but yeah, it didn't rain in here actually.
Yeah. So it did that. My daughter's softball game got rained out, but it was sunny by the time after school came, and they were able to at least get a practice in. But man, like once the clouds cleared and it actually got sunny and it wasn't so bad, but like the wind picked up and the temperature dropped like 20 degrees in an hour. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my God.
it was I think it was 42 at the field, a real field like 37. So,
wow.
yeah, it was tough. I went straight back to the winter jacket. I went over. Michael went over without his jacket as typical. So he's there for like 5 minutes. It's like, can you bring my jacket? So I bring the Diamond Dog over. We hook it up. We go on over there, drop that back off, and I came back. I'm like, I'm bringing the winter jacket back. I'm like, I'm not screwing around.
Yeah, I've
It
been
was
going.
cold.
I found I missed like one of my winter. I don't really get like big heavy coats. I just kind of layer up, and I have this one that's like I call it the sheep because it looks like a sheep. I'm like, oh man, I forgot how comfortable the sheep is. So I've been wearing that. I wore that to a couple of Luis's games. It was pretty good. And I was saying on Twitter before, I'm like, I might have to send Luisa up to go hit with our pal Lily and Martineau. And I might have to just throw Luisa into the cage up there because whatever that kid's eating, man, she was a great guest for us, and she just has a great swing.
Oh, absolutely. Do you think Dad had the Green Day going? With the Green Day was playing, I'm like, who put that on the playlist there?
Well, remember we had Katie on, right? Her mom, and she said that because I was curious. I was like, I wonder like like how much of this stuff is she doing herself, and is she getting help from from mom and dad or whatever? And Katie was like, no, she just kind of sets up the camera, she does her thing, and the next thing we know, this stuff is showing up. So I'm thinking it's her.
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's her.
Probably. Someone soft tossing. I think that was soft tossing it, but
no, I think she's got the machine.
Oh, was that the machine from? Oh, you couldn't see it. Okay.
Yeah, I can't see. Well, I can't see it.
Yeah.
I don't think you ever see it in the videos, but I just assume it's a machine because it's like perfect and in the same spot every time, and it seems like a regular rhythm. And I know
my dad toss is not like that.
Yeah, mine is like I've ruined more swings with my shit soft toss. I can't.
Let me do a change up.
Yeah, here. That one's at my eyes, Coach Riz. Yeah, well, we're just you just
make contact.
You're not going to tell you where they're pitching the ball.
This serves can hit it anywhere.
Yeah, you got to be able to hit that thing. Have you ever heard of Vladimir Guerrero?
Think he cared?
Yeah, you think he cared? Coach Riz, that one was on the ground. Just hit it. You see it and hit it. Come on.
Got one way to go.
Oh, but so Dog, like with my bum like hip core, lower back stuff, I can't sit on the spackle bucket. It kills me to do that.
Mm,
But so I'm like a a one knee guy for the soft toss, and
I like that too.
it's not as good. Like if you're sitting on the bucket, it's so much easier to do the soft toss. It really is. The one knee is like it's harder like to make it repeatable, I think, and rhythmic
Yeah.
because you got to pick up the other ball. Like it, I don't know. I just find it I find it to be hampering. I also, I'm not. This is the first time in like I don't even, like 8 years that I haven't had to coach any sport. I don't think I didn't coach anything this year. So, you know, that means I'm old, I guess.
You get the big comfy. Actually, I just upgraded to the big comfy chair on the side. So I got a little exercise, get a little ventilation in the back. So after
Wow.
15 years, I finally decided it's time to step it up. I had the old Sports Authority ones that were a little beaten up, starting to fall apart. Like most people are done by this point. I am not. So like I've got another 5 or 6 years. I'm like, it's time. So we had to step it up a little.
Well, me
We
and
didn't go the
Debbie.
full like shock absorber one.
Oh,
That's like grandpa ones. I'm like
that's a little
that's a little,
crazy.
yeah, a little heavy. Plus, I never
Debbie,
sit in the chair when I get there anyway.
I know. I'm a
I'm a walk
stander.
around guy.
I'm a stander. But so Debbie and I have like the double chair because we were able,
Well,
fortunately,
look
to
at you
get
guys. Oh, aren't you so
to
cute?
most of the.
You're that couple, aren't you?
But she sits in it. We got our vaccines together,
Look at that. Look at that.
and we're getting our second one together as
Oh, that's so
well.
nice. Oh, I like this.
Yeah.
This is a feel good show.
Yeah.
Normally, it's
Why?
much more contentious. This actually
It's
feels really nice.
it's a little weird, right?
I get to occasionally change it up. Change up. One more change up.
Cubs 14, Mets 4. Dog's really looking for something to feel good about. Yankees
Hey, hey.
Yankees
Let's talk sports chairs.
Yankees 6 up, 11 down. Riz is looking, grasping at straws over here. Uh, the whole idea though, right, of youth sports has even changed a little bit, right? Because with the pandemic, since we were talking about that, just being able to go back to fields and stuff now, it seems like that almost seems like normal at this point. Like they say, well, one, two, parents per kid, whatever, and none of the fields I've seen are overrun, and people are really spread out. But there's less people like wearing masks. You get the occasional mask here and there, but everybody's spread out. Most of the people you're kind of, seeing rather frequently, and half of them are vaccinated at that. So that part starts to seem a little bit more normal. I see some kids playing with masks, but a little bit less. And I think they've lifted the mask requirements for players on the field and pretty much all the sports in New Jersey now for a while. I think they still have it maybe in Connecticut. I'm not sure. Maybe they might have lifted it. But I know when my daughter was playing hockey in Connecticut for a practice, she had to have the mask on. And that was like, she was having a lot of trouble with that. She's a pretty
Yeah,
easy
I mean,
kid.
I can't imagine doing hockey with a mask on like that.
Yeah, it's
Unless it
just,
was crazy cold. Then you'd have the whole balaclava on. It wouldn't,
yeah,
it wouldn't bother you.
yeah, you could just do that. Um, so, a lot of test of our metal over the year. I think, you and I have been fortunate, like within our groups and our circle, that, um, everybody made it through. A couple of people here and there, on the extended families and things like that. I think we've had a couple of losses, and um, but for the most part, right, like our show here has marched on. And to give a little history lesson, after that show we had a couple of good guests, and we had a lot of momentum, and then some things happened behind the scenes, and I kind of pulled away from it for a little bit, and then we jumped back in July and kind of had to rebuild it from scratch. And as we did that, it's been really a host and co-host kind of situation for us here. With I don't know what, there's been one or two shows I guess that you've missed, right? But
Yeah, yeah. The Scott one, that was the only bummer one. I remember.
yeah, that was a tough one for you to miss too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
your
I just
dad was like a
could not make it
stellar
happen.
veteran of the day as well.
That was Duffy.
Yeah, but what are you
Frozen
gonna
chosen.
say, la vie?
I was at a baseball game. What are you
I
gonna
know.
do?
So that counts. You get
Exactly.
you get dispensation for that. Do
I
we
was a
want to
diehard.
hit any of this stuff that's kind of gone on here in the majors? The A's have they start the season 0-6, then they split 2 games, and now they win their 11th in a row. They were losing by 2 runs in the 10th, and then they win it with 3 in the bottom of the 10th. The last one on it's a ground ball to third with the bases loaded, and whoever it was over there just throws the ball like into the stands in Oakland, which is like hard to do, because
Wait for it back. Yeah.
there's so much foul territory there. And so they win. They go to 11 straight. Apparently, no team in Major League history that lost its first 6 games had ever won 11 in a row at any point of any season, let alone like right after it. So that's pretty good. But we've seen these crazy streaks from the A's before, right? Like
Yeah.
in Moneyball, they won like 20 in a row, which happened like in real life. It was a movie. It was a movie about real life and how awesome they were, except like they forgot to mention the fact that they had the 3 best pitchers in the American League in the movie.
Yeah,
Like
but that's not the reason.
Hudson, Mulder, and Zito. Hey, but you guys, but
You found this
Moneyball.
guy. You found this guy. Yeah. It's Chad Bradford.
Yeah, it's
That's the whole reason.
yeah.
It's like, all that
It,
was good, and
yeah, it's not that nobody could hit Barry Zito's curveball. That's not the reason. So you got that. You got the struggles of the Yankees, right? 6-11. They had the worst record in the American League. Then they got off of that, and now with the loss on this evening, they fall back to it. You got Corbin Burns with the 40 strikeouts and no walks, in 23 innings. He's allowed 5 hits. I mean, it's like one of the craziest, most dominant streaks of a pitcher we've ever seen, and yet somehow he has a loss. Figure that out. Eat your
is he
heart.
related to DeGrom?
Yeah, I was gonna say, eat your heart out to Grom, right? Um, the uh, the Padre Dodger series, which was on fire. We had that, and then they'll be doing part 2, as we move into the weekend. And Dog's lights keep flickering. I don't know what the hell is going on over there. You having a power outage, a Bauer
Monitor is
outage,
saving a little power here. Hold on a second. Let me fire it up.
power outage, Bauer outage. Diamond Dog's flicking the switch. You got somebody,
Time to go. Time to go.
kids
Way
fighting over
past walking time.
kids fighting over the shower. They're turning the light off and on so Dad can come in and bring
Oh,
up
we could
the
do an update
speed.
on that. The water bill has definitely come down a lot. So
Oh,
we've
really?
oh really? Yep. The speculation is true. It's all about Molly and Katie. So we had a
Wow.
little water leak in there too. In fairness, we did have a little leak at the front. So
Nobody's looking
like a
for
goose
fairness. Just blame the girls. Come on.
there's a lot. There's big there's big causation there. Let's just leave it at that. So
we got the Padre Dodger series was totally great, and it had a playoff feel to it. And the Padres salvaged the Sunday game after losing the first 2. And then the Brewers come in to San Diego and they complete a sweep. And unfortunately for my fantasy team, Denilson Lamet came in through 2 innings and left the game with another injury. So hopefully that doesn't derail him, selfishly speaking. But the funny thing is, Dog, like we're so focused on the Padre Dodger thing that we're sort of ignoring the Giants off to a good start here.
yeah,
Like the Giants are ahead of the Padres right now, and they're kind of doing it with some good pitching. Now, granted, they're 11-7, and the Padres are 10-10 after getting swept. But you kind of like the way it adds a little excitement there early on, where you're like, wait a minute, like the Giants, what's going? Buster Posey looks pretty good. He's got like 4 homers. They're a nice surprise, and they're not playing the Dodgers or the Padres right now. They're playing the Marlins, so they're kind of like really they're out of the map. They're they're away from things a little bit. Giants have been a good story here so far. Giants and the the Brewers, of course, but those two teams, and the Dodgers. Did they win their 100th game yet? What are they? 14-4, 6-0
Yeah,
at home. I mean, come
irritating.
on, yeah, get used to it.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean that's just gonna be a great division. And we sort of talked about that the in spring training, kind of coming into it. As the Dodgers and the Padres and running back and forth, and just can these other teams kind of hang? And it's it's kind of exciting. Like they're kind of living up to it, whereas like the NL East is kind of not really so far. Uh, Delivered on where they thought they would need to be. I mean, some injuries in NL East as well, so Nats losing some stars and stuff. So that may wind up tightening up that division a little bit more than we kind of thought. I mean, Braves a
Yeah,
little, a little,
Strasburg, Acuna. I mean, those are
yeah,
those are two huge injuries, right?
yeah.
Interesting stuff. Like, so the Mets, as we as we speak, 7-5, they're going to fall to 7-6 as cousin Anthony just walks. Okay, we can't do play by play here, folks. That's a walk to Anthony Rizzo. Okay, we can't do play by play. But yeah, that the N least it looks like the NL. I mean,
For now,
so the Mets will be a game over and leading the division. I mean, they've played about as many games as the Vancouver Canucks at this point. With all the, the Canucks. Okay, so that's a hockey joke. And if you're in Canada, I know we have a lot of people from Canada that check us out. The Canucks were just off for like 3 weeks or more because their whole team basically got COVID. And they're going to have to play like 19 games in the final 32 days of the season to complete their season, which in baseball, that would be like a lot of time off. But in hockey, that's like usually you'd play 19 games in probably 50 days, something like that.
yeah.
So they're going to, push that in. But the Mets, with their 13 games here, they've played 5 less games than the Phillies, and the Braves. And, they just had so many of these rainouts. But
I mean, the funny thing for the Mets is right. I mean, have with the Mets with the pitching they have out, like these delays actually are pretty good for the Mets, right? Because they're getting back Syndergaard, they're getting back Carrasco and Lugo should be coming back, hopefully within the next couple of weeks or so. So it's like if you're gonna miss any games this year, it's like okay. Let's say, oh, I skipped David Peterson that time. Oh, okay.
well, and you also get the benefit a lot of times of the 7 inning games if they make him into double
Yep.
headers, right?
Yep.
So that I mean, theoretically, it kind of benefits both teams in a way.
Yep.
Like it's even, but it sort of benefits both teams that they don't have to, those are less innings that you have to find out of the back or the middle of your bullpen.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely favors a team with a strong starter, right? Where you can jump straight to the starter plus one guy.
and
That
and
saves the rest of your pen for the rest of it.
right, and or a weak bullpen, right? Or
Yep.
like so that's interesting. But what we've also seen is we've seen some teams in the Central in the National League, kind of bunch up maybe a little bit more than expected. Like the Pirates 8-10. I mean,
Yep.
they're minus 18 on the differential, but the Cubs, the Cubs will move to 8-9. Their differential heading into the game is minus 21. They're gonna like knock
Help
that in
that out.
half but so it changes, and now they're up 15. It's cousin Anthony scores 15-4. Okay, folks, again, we can't do play by play, but that's Anthony Rizzo scoring on Bodie single. Okay. But you got, the Pirates doing that without Cabrian Hayes, and we had Rod Biertempfel from the Athletic on a week or two ago. Go back even if you're not a Pittsburgh person, like Rob
That was a
just
fun
did.
show.
Oh, Guillaume is pitching. I think they just brought wait, or did they? Or maybe they're just talking about it. Wait,
Good.
16?
He's pretty good.
Is this real? What? It's 16 for, I don't know. This is
I mean, it's sort of sad when like you're trying to save your bullpen. They barely even throw in any games.
Oh yeah,
like,
it is.
Like they kind of
Guillaume.
need they kind of need those guys to throw anyway.
It is Guillaume. And Jake Marisnik just got like a double off of him.
Now Jake Marisnik's
Oh my
getting
God, they
hits.
can't even. Okay, somebody just flew out to center. Let's see if he tags. No, he doesn't tag from third. Good sport. Guillaume 13 pitches now, and he's got 2 outs. So we've seen a lot of position players pitching. We saw it
Yeah,
in the
that has been
Dodger
weird.
game, in the Dodger Padre game,
Yeah.
which was maybe the moment of the year. So David
Yeah.
Price is, he's pitching out of the bullpen for the Dodgers, and he pitches like 4 innings in that game. His turn to bat comes up in the 12th, I think it was. The Padres run out of pitchers, and they bring in Jake Cronenworth from second base to pitch. Now, he pitched at Michigan, and he was good. Like and up until I think 2019, the Rays in the minors had they still were experimenting with Cronenworth, like coming out of the bullpen. So he's he's like the position player that you bring in when you still want to try to win the game. As Dawg just bops in and out. Well, you can't. If you're just
Don't know
listening, nothing
what's
happened.
going on tonight.
So he's the position player that you bring in when you still want to win the game. But then they slide whoever was in left over to center. Maybe it was Tommy Pham, and they put Joe Musgrove, who just threw the no-hitter, into left field. And David Price
Left field X.
He hits the ball to the left fielder. Joe Musgrove makes the play, and I think it was a sacrifice fly. So you had all this craziness going on, and the Dodgers win that game, and on the next game, the Padres look like they have the game-winning hit, and Mookie Betts makes what might stand up as the catch of the year. I still don't know how that ball stayed in his glove, and the Padres fight back and they win the Sunday game, but it like a heavyweight fight. You come out of that, and the Brewers come in and just they just whoop them 3 games. The Padres can't get their bats off their shoulder for 3. But that's the great thing about baseball, Dog, right? Like these are things that we expect in a few months time, that there's going to be separation, and you're going to see the Dodgers. You're going to expect them to be where they are, well out in front and first, but you figure the Padres are going to be tailing them. You're not sure if it's going to be by 5 games, 10, 15, but you figure they're going to be in second, possibly not too far back. And then the also rans in the NL West. Well, it's not like that right now, so we can't assume that it's going to be. And last season, in our 60-game truncated season, right, the story was the Marlins in terms of this. And the Marlins got off to that great start, right? They got off to the 7-0 start, and they hung on just enough through the 60 games to get themselves there. This year they have the opposite start. They start out real slow, and now all of a sudden they're back to 8 and 9, and in that that muddled mix. And we haven't even talked about the AL, Dog. The Red Sox get swept by the Orioles in 3 to start the season, and all of a sudden they run off a 12-3 streak, and they're sitting in first in the AL East when they were picked to be second to last. And the Rays, they're at 10-8, but they have basically gotten all their wins against the Yankees, right? Orioles 8-10, Blue Jays 7-10, Yankees 6-11, right? I mean, it's crazy. The Yankees can't pitch, and they can't hit, and so Dog, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you didn't see this because you were at the fields earlier. But Gleyber Torres hit a ball. He pounded it into the dirt. An easy comebacker. Just pounded it right into the dirt. Pitcher steps up. And I mean, he throws the bat down, and he's jogging to first. And it doesn't look like he's hurt. It's just, I mean, it wasn't that easy of a play, I should say. It was a play that, he's probably going to be out on, but the pitcher's got to come in and pick up the ball and make the play. Definitely a ball that you want to hustle. You're like, oh, I might be able to beat this out. At least I got to make it close. Just loafs it down to first. And let me tell you,
that's not like the Yankees. I've always said that's what always irritated me about the Luis Castillo play. When I'm like, had it been the Mets, the SOB wouldn't have scored. The Yankees hustled the entire way. It looked like the game was over, right? And that's
Yeah.
the sign of a great organization. I don't know. Has anyone getting on a hot seat yet?
Well, I mean, look, Torres hasn't hit, and his fielding is, one of the top, or lack of it is one of the top stories, every day in
Yeah,
the daily roll call in the New York area, which is where we are. I mean, look, Yankee organization, Royal organization, Seattle Mariners, whatever, take your pick. It doesn't matter. The one thing that fans cannot stand, the one thing they cannot stand is when guys don't hustle.
yep,
Because when they don't hustle, it looks like they don't care. And when it looks like they don't care, people say, why the hell should I watch this guy if he's getting paid that much money to play a game? Why? If he
yep.
doesn't care. That's why people are getting disillusioned with the NBA right now, dog. Because you have these great players, these superstar players that you kill to watch. I mean, I put myself off as a Nets fan. Jersey guy. They were, back to the Piscataway days, where Rutgers is, and now they're Brooklyn. So like, what, kind of, but it's,
It's
basketball's
still kind of like
definitely,
Jersey. Yeah,
it's lower on the totem pole, but now, they got these great guys, Kyrie Irving's a great player. Kevin Durant is like an all-time great player. James Harden's an MVP, and they got these guys, and, they never play. They've played 7 games altogether. They sit out for maintenance. They sit out for this. They sit out for nothing, dog. I mean, and people get disillusioned. Why do I want to watch? Why?
yeah. That's a fair point. I mean, it's tough. It's funny. I have flashbacks to Cano. Right? I remember when Cano was out and being sort of lousy with the Mets and stuff, and then he was getting dogged out for not hustling out um, plays, which he had kind of always done, right? Even as a Yankee and stuff, he always sort of had that situation. And then he goes and hustles and of course pulls a hammy because he's a Met and that's what they do. It's like just snake bit no matter what happens. Like of all the times, like watch just jog your way down, right? You're like 38 or so. Let's not blow this up or whatever. He's like hustling along because I'm sure he was hearing it, right? He has pride, and he like winds up blowing, and so he was finally starting to hit, and he winds up blowing his leg out, which is just par for the course with that whole deal. But yeah, I mean, especially if you're a young player like Labor Torres, I mean, again, it's one thing if you're the 35-year-old catcher and you're not zipping your way down, that's fine, and we're trying to save you along, but yeah, there's no reason in the world, especially when your team is struggling, right? Just try and find a way. Try and find a make things happen. Like someone doesn't throw a ball away, it slips in trying to pick it up. I mean, there's a million different things that can happen on that sort of play. And I guess going back to it, with our our Shigan and the launch angle guys and stuff, right? If it's just like, are we just playing home run derby? And that's just kind of what the game is turning into more and more and more. And there's some you know so a lot of fans who don't like that. I actually kind of thought it was kind of cool. I personally have kind of noticed. I don't know if this is just anecdotal, or whatever, but like way more guys starting to go the other way and like starting to go out and find ways to beat the shift and stuff like that. I've finally seen that this year, where I haven't really seen that in the last like year or two or so. That it seems like people have actually gone out to try and figure out ways to beat the shift. Not all the time, but some of the time. Um, Francisco Lindor actually, he had a play like that really stuck with me. They were like ninth inning or so, and just kept the chain moving, and they wound up winning the game eventually because of that. Um,
Well,
I think it was
Bryce
the I think
Harper,
I think it was I
Bryce
think it was the I think it was the McNeil home run game, if I remember right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Bryce Harper, he's done it like 6 times now.
Yeah.
And last night, well, I say last night, but we got to put it in perspective on
Yeah.
dates for people because like they listen at all different times. But it was I think it was the April 20th game. Joey Gallo from the Rangers, left-handed, K
Yeah.
slash homer slash walk guy all the
Yeah.
way, pull hitter, guy on third. They overshift him. They're shifting with a guy on third. He just bunted like to the left side.
Yeah. That's all.
Easy run,
Yeah.
and he's on first.
Yeah.
And he can, he himself is a good base runner. As our buddy Jeff Fry, Shigon Nation said, there's a ribeye right there. Easy ribeye.
Yeah.
Easy. So just take it.
Yeah.
Just take it. And that's the way you start beating the shift, right? Like that,
Yep.
the game polices itself. You don't have to ban the shifts. You just have to ban the the thinking that you can't do it, right? And if guys
Yep.
like, Bryce Harper and Joey Gallo are left-handed sluggers that can get on base a lot because they both have a real high walk rate. They both hit the ball a ton. They're pretty similar players. And if those guys are going to drop bunts or just smack the ball, the other way and not worry about if they hit it 109 miles an hour and 462 feet,
Yep.
that they could hit the ball, 37 feet and the 37 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and they're standing on first base. I mean, that's
You can
better
still
than
slug 500 if you can bunt safely 2 times that way, right?
yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's still
true.
not bad.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
500, 500, 500.
Yeah.
1,000 OPS. That's okay.
Don't make outs.
Yeah.
Somebody
simple.
posted it. Somebody posted a cool stat. I forget who it was on Twitter, but it was, Mike Trout's a great player, and he would have to have an OPS of 1.092 for the next 7,300 at bats of his career to have a higher career OPS than Barry Bonds. Like, that's a good point, but I was looking at
Barry had a little help.
he did. But I was looking at Dawg. I was looking at Ted Williams, and I sorted his baseball reference by career, OPS per season. It's just absurd. I mean,
Wow.
and and you look at the seasons that he missed, like his 23, 24, and 25-year-old seasons
Yeah.
when he was already a great player. It's not
Yeah.
like he became a great player at like his age 27 season. Like,
Yeah.
he was great from the day he walked out there, basically.
Yeah.
And he had a few other years where they're not completely blank, but he had, like, a minimal amount of games. And one year I think he played it, I think he had like 59 games or something, and he actually hit 407. I was like, wow. He actually hit higher than 406, the famed 406 in 1941. Yeah, he actually did that better in like a truncated season. It was the equivalent. Like, I was like, wow, that was his equivalent to like the COVID year. Like,
Yeah.
if he would have hit 407 in the COVID year. Like, if you were wondering what Ted Williams would have done, he would have hit 407. Like, The other thing
Ted
I
Williams
thought
hit
was,
like 507
yeah, maybe, yeah,
that
he
year.
might. He might have. He might have.
Like the scrub pitchers going out there and stuff. Oh my Lord.
Or what did George Brett say? He goes, if they had shifted me in my prime, I would have hit 600. He might have.
And he would have. Does anyone doubt that? Pete Rose? You think you'd shift with Pete Rose? Come on.
Where are you going to shift him? At the bookie? That's your best shot at stopping him. You weren't going to stop him. He was going to find. So, like the Ted Williams, like, I was looking at some of his defensive stuff. He led like 7 years. He led left fielders in most double plays started.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that's pretty good. I mean, playing left
-4.
No, I don't know. Like, I think just
I don't think he did actually, but I'm saying he should get all those double plays.
I think I was like, what? Like, how could he do that? And then I'm like, oh, you know what? When the ball was hit to left, like, he was known as, not being a great fielder out there at all. They probably just were starting to take the extra base or take the base on him. Like, say, runner on second, liner to left, the guy's, going more than halfway to third. And then, he comes up and makes the catch, and the guy's like, uh-oh, I got to jam on the brakes. I thought I was going to score because it's Williams. And then he throws behind him and gets the double play. I'm figuring it's got to, there had to be a whole bunch of those, right?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah. And Dawg, I know when you were thinking about, like, before this, you're like, I'm going to have the AC today. I'm sure you were thinking, yeah, we're going to end up talking about Ted Williams turning double plays from left field.
I did not know that was going to be on the test.
It's not on the notepad either. So how do we wrap it up? Do you want me to do? You want me to do the wrap up? You
We
think? Are you capable?
should we, should we do a little Diehard Dads?
Yeah, we could do a little Diehard Dads. I
All
don't see
right, why
why
don't you
not.
start since I haven't thought of one?
Well, yeah, but you have to introduce the segment now.
How do we do that again? See, and now this is what I'm normally thinking of the Die Hard Dad story I'm gonna have. So just say, let's go to Die Hard Dads.
What the
So I
hell
don't
do
know
you?
how it starts.
What do you think I'm doing right now? I'm like, yeah, well, Dog wants to be in
Oh,
the AC.
does
I'm
it,
going to throw it
and
to him.
Savior just plays the music, right?
Yeah, but we
That
don't
was time
have.
for Die Hard Dads.
There we
And we're
go,
good.
and there it is, and there it is. Um, so with the Die Hard Dads today, Dog is going to lead this one off.
Well, I guess I could do Michael with Mail do it. So we talked about Michael and his throwing, quite reminiscent of his father. So all thrust no vector, as my Air Force guys would say. So a lot of a lot of velocity, a little trouble with the location tonight. No hitter though, no hitter. So he has an at bat. So he gets walks and got a nice single earlier. But then he was up against a side armor. I always hated sidearm guys to bat against. The righty side armor versus righty batter.
Chad Bradford.
Exactly, Jet Bradford. And so he's like, sometimes his side, it's like a young kid, right? So like sometimes his sidearm stuff is a 3/4, so it's kind of all over the place, right? So he's kind of tough to hit against. Just you don't know what you're gonna get. So he's sitting there. Michael's like, actually, Michael kind of reminds me of like Hojo. He's got like the quick bat, like loves the fastball and stuff. So he like rips a fastball down on him, and he's like down 0-2 right away because he's totally geared up, and like he's probably a little ticked off, but the whole pitching and stuff too. So he's down like 0-2 hole, fights his way back 3-2, and then this kid goes and balls him. I don't know if he planned it or what. I mean, the kid was probably like 11, 12. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know if it was like the ballsy move or it just like, and I just decided to go for it. Like he throws this like change up from like a side armor, and like Michael is like a time zone ahead of this one. Like wasn't like that much break, but literally it was like the Bugs Bunny ball, and he was like, like a mile ahead. And I was like, wow. I think even on the video I recorded, like, wow, that was a ballsy pitch. Like, there was no way in the world that was going to be over. And I think it was like first and second or something like that. And, would have walked the bases loaded. But he pulled it off. So it would have been a ball. But yeah, Michael swung about 3 times before it got to the plate. So it was on strike five. So hat tip to that one. And he had to acknowledge it later on. So tough one when they kept battling, but the 11-1 they walked it off, so it was not too bad.
Okay, so I for those who don't know, one of the longest running podcasts in mixed martial arts history, which is still running for whenever I decide to do it, is called Rear Naked Choke Radio, and that is my MMA podcast, which has been going since 2007 in some kind of iteration, way, shape, or form, and so that means during this time, I've had people like Ronda Rousey on. I've had people like Randy Couture. I've had a lot of good people on there, right? And I've been to a lot of great fights. And I was not so much these days, but at some point I was pretty well, immersed and maybe known a little bit in the MMA world. So there's been a lot of UFC fights and stuff that have been on at the house over the years. And when the kids were younger, I'd get a little traction every now and then. Like I'd drag one of them over and they'd be watching it and they'd get a little enraptured. But these days, it's I'm still watching stuff, not as often, but um nobody ever seems to want to watch any kind of game with me except if it's Louisa watching the Devils or a hockey game with me. That's we're pretty much tapped out at that at this point. So, of course, this past Saturday night, it wasn't MMA, but Jake Paul,
You're
noted
going here.
noted boxer Jake Paul, was fighting former MMA fighter Ben Askren, who was actually on my show I'm pretty sure. At least I did video interviews and stuff with him at some point, like during the height of his MMA career. And my sons were like, "Oh, we're gonna watch it and blah blah blah. We get the friends and we're all gonna watch it and blah. You want to watch it?" And I'm like, "I don't really want to watch it with you guys." So I had it, I had it on my own. So I'm up here in my setup where I'm actually doing where I do the show from in my office, and I'm watching it, on my computer, and they're downstairs, and watching it with their friends, and I'm just like, the irony of this is just can't be lost on me. Like the one time that like we're both want to watch it, wanting to watch the same event, I'm like, I gotta use it as like kind of like I gotta like tweet about it as it's going on my other Twitter account at Rear Naked Choke. You can follow that if you're into MMA. Dog, that was literally the best night I've ever had on Twitter. Just talking about the Jake Paul fight.
Ugh,
That's what it was. And then producer Xavier is texting me like after Ben Askren got knocked out by Jake Paul, which I didn't see coming. Um, and
neither
and
did
I'm
Ben.
Yeah, he
Or did
apparently
he?
not. Doesn't
More on
matter.
that later.
He's seeing his paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Cash the check.
Yeah. So it was just, I'm like, this is just it's just so funny, like that this is what it is. Like it would have been nice to like kind of hang out with the guys, but I'm like, I gotta be responsible to my Twitter. I have a big night on Twitter here for the heck of it. So let me actually pay attention, and it's a little easier for me to, tweet faster and more witty from my computer rather than my phone, I would say. I can kind of, grab things a little easier and whatever. But that's my diehard dad's dog. That's
There you
it.
go.
I
Very
went to
cool.
I went the Jake Paul route.
All right. Well, I think that'll about do it, right? So, for Joe Rizzo, this is Jeff the Dog Healy. Diamond Diehards is out.